why automakers' EV factory investments aren't paying off in the US. With the promise of a more sustainable and environmentally friendly future, the electric vehicle EV revolution has prompted automakers globally to construct facilities in order to accommodate the increasing demand for cleaner transportation. This shift was anticipated with great anticipation in the United States due to financial incentives from the government, more stringent environmental laws, and a global movement to cut carbon emissions. Large automakers have spent billions constructing new EV facilities and modernizing old ones, including Tesla, Ford, General Motors, and others. These state-of-the-art factories would serve as the foundation of a new era of transportation, with electric vehicles (EVs) set to take over the road in the near future. But as the sector develops, gaps in the strategy are beginning to emerge. Many automakers are finding it difficult to turn these plants into viable endeavors in the US market, even with large investments. Production costs are still high, supply chains are still adjusting to the disruptions caused by the epidemic, and although consumer adoption is increasing, it isn't happening as quickly as predicted. Moreover, many consumers are reluctant to make the changeover because the infrastructure for charging EVs has not yet reached the scale needed to facilitate a full transition. Some doubt if the enormous expenditures made in EV manufacturing will ever pay off as planned as the market develops. Many have questioned whether the United States is actually prepared for the future of electric vehicles, due to the difficulties automakers face in striking a balance between innovation and profitability. This video investigates the reasons why the path to electric vehicle EV success is more challenging than first believed and looks at the variables that are delaying the return on these significant factory expenditures. Slow consumer uptake of electric vehicles. One major barrier to automakers investing in EV facilities is the sluggish customer acceptance of electric vehicles (EVs). Many customers are reluctant to convert from gasoline-powered cars to electric vehicles (EVs) despite growing knowledge of climate change and the advantages of EVs for the environment. This hesitation is their initial price of EVs, as well as exacerbated by the high worries about the scarcity of charging stations and driving range. In areas where SUVs and trucks are highly preferred, electric vehicles are seen to be less appropriate for heavy-duty or long-distance driving. This is especially true in rural locations, where there is a dearth of charging infrastructure, which reduces the viability of EV ownership. Consequently, automakers are finding it difficult to defend their billion-dollar wagers on the future of transportation, while EV factories, which depend on strong demand to recover their enormous investments, are doing poorly. Exorbitant production expenses. Automakers now face a major obstacle in the electric vehicle EV market: high production costs. Building new factories and retooling old ones requires large capital investments, which makes the early phases of EV production very costly. These financial difficulties are further increased by the need to build a dependable supply chain for batteries and other crucial EV components. Budgets have been further stretched by the skyrocketing costs of raw materials like nickel, cobalt, and lithium, adding another level of complication for producers. Automakers encounter difficulties achieving economies of scale when they try to increase output in an effort to reduce costs. Their excessively optimistic growth projections, which have not yet come to pass, served as the foundation for many of their investments in industrial automation and expansion. It is therefore challenging for many businesses to lower production costs per unit to the point where electric vehicles (EVs) may be just as profitable as their gasoline-powered competitors, which makes it challenging to maintain long-term operations in the cutthroat automotive industry. Increases in chain supply. Significant supply chain interruptions have hampered the growth and operational effectiveness of the electric vehicle EV sector. These difficulties have been made worse by the COVID-19 epidemic and geopolitical unrest, which has resulted in severe shortages of semiconductor chips, which are necessary parts for the production of electric vehicles. The ramp-up of recently built EV plants has been hindered by this shortfall, which has slowed manufacturing efforts. Delivery of crucial components has been delayed due to logistical constraints, which have further compounded the situation. These include port congestion and a shortage of raw material processing facilities in the United States. Despite the growing demand for electric vehicles (EVs), manufacturers are finding it difficult to keep up with the demand, which drives up costs and causes manufacturing delays. The competitive EV industry presents automakers with a difficult environment as they attempt to establish themselves. These difficulties stem from supply chain management, opposition from newcomers, and legacy automakers. The market for electric vehicles (EVs) has grown more competitive as new and established manufacturers compete for a piece of the profitable EV industry. Although Tesla has long held the top spot in the market, several well-known manufacturers are stepping up their efforts to produce electric vehicles and greatly expanding their production capacities, including General Motors, Ford, and Volkswagen. Novel newcomers that threaten the current quo with their cutting-edge designs and technologies, including Lucid Motors, Rivian, and other international competitors from China, are intensifying the battle. The increased level of competition leads to a fragmented market, making it more difficult for individual manufacturers to gain market share. Price wars have evolved as businesses vie for consumers' attention, driving manufacturers to provide incentives and discounts. Inadequate infrastructure for charging. The absence of a widespread and convenient infrastructure for charging electric vehicles is one of the primary obstacles that prevent consumers from buying one. Even with efforts to increase the number of EV charging stations, the industry is still far from being able to support fully electric vehicles. Concerns about running out of battery charge on lengthy excursions are common among prospective EV purchasers, particularly in rural locations with few charging outlets. With the expectation that demand would rise in tandem with the expansion of the infrastructure for charging, automakers made significant investments in the production of electric cars. Uncertainty in government policy. Government policies like subsidies and laws have a significant impact on the EV industry. Although there have been substantial tax breaks and subsidies offered to encourage the use of electric vehicles, it is unclear how long they will endure. Political leadership changes may bring about changes in environmental regulations, which may help or hurt the EV market's expansion. For example, several manufacturers have constructed factories in advance of more incentives for electric vehicle EV purchasers and stricter emission rules. However, consumer demand can plateau if subsequent administrations choose to reverse such initiatives or lower EV tax incentives. Early adopter states market saturation. The market for electric vehicles (EVs) in the United States is heavily concentrated in a few areas, especially in states like California and New York, where infrastructure development and environmental regulations are more supportive of EVs. But because the majority of early adopters have already bought EVs, these marketplaces are starting to get crowded. In contrast, because of cultural preferences for gasoline-powered trucks and a dearth of charging stations, other parts of the country, particularly the Midwest and the South, have seen slower adoption rates. In order to achieve universal adoption of electric vehicles, automakers are finding it difficult to break into these sectors. Even though companies are producing EVs at a rapid pace, they aren't finding enough purchasers in significant parts of the nation due to this geographic mismatch in demand. Conclusion. Despite the enormous potential of the EV revolution, automakers are finding it extremely difficult to recoup their factory investments in the U.S. market. Automakers are under pressure to reach their ambitious production and sales targets due to a combination of factors such as slow customer uptake, high production costs, and ongoing supply chain problems. Furthermore, the absence of adequate charging infrastructure, new competitors, and the intense competition from established automakers all hinder growth potential. The lack of clarity surrounding government policies and the regional differences in EV adoption have posed challenges for manufacturers seeking to create broad demand. Automakers find it difficult to achieve economies of scale because despite significant acceptance in some regions such as California and New York, the rest of the nation lags behind. In the end, getting through these obstacles and encouraging broader consumer acceptance will determine whether or not these enormous expenditures are successful. Let us know in the comments what you think about why automakers' EV factory investments aren't paying off in the US, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more captivating content on our YouTube channel.